Our topic of discussion is identifying the next group of impact players in the 2023 NFL season who will rise to fantasy relevance, or those who might fall off the wagon after being on the ride for several years. Are you curious about this? That's today's topic, next on Draft Brothers. Okay, in this installment of Draft Brothers, Dan and I chat about the impact of the NFL draft on veteran players, and we assess who will benefit and who's going to suffer from the influx of new talent, providing valuable insights for fantasy football enthusiasts in redraft and dynasty leagues. Dan, are you prepared for what we're about to share here? We will be providing some useful information that could lead our viewers to send some trades to their fellow league mates, so there's no pressure here for you.
Absolutely not. I definitely won't be using any of this with any of my league mates, and I definitely won't be using it against me, I'm sure.
All right, well, let's get to it. Okay, if you enjoy receiving helpful information and insights for your fantasy football leagues, then our show is perfect for you. We cover various topics related to the NFL and fantasy football in at least one show per week. If this interests you, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts with a comment. So let's dive in and discover who benefits and who falters. All right, so I think the best way to do this is just kind of like do a top five, my top five, your top five of who benefits. I'm going to start off with Justin Fields as a player who benefits. Number one, you've got the DJ Moore trade. They added offensive tackle Darnell Wright as the 10th overall pick in the draft. So this is going to help Fields. So there might be some of you who are thinking, you know, he doesn't pass the ball a lot. He averaged 150 yards passing per game. That's it last year. How is this going to help him? Well, I think that things are going to improve in his second year. I think we can expect him to rise. Maybe he doesn't run for 1,100 yards like he did last year. So I think having the addition of DJ Moore, they also drafted Tyler Scott. I just think that the Bears are kind of putting him in the right position to succeed. And, you know, it's up to him to see where he goes from here. But I do believe that his needle is pointing up. And we kind of saw Jalen Hurts do the same thing last year. So in my opinion, Justin Fields is definitely someone who benefits. Another player that I think is someone who's going to benefit is Treylon Burks. So he's the Titans wide receiver. The Titans had a weak wide receiver depth chart to begin with. This was before the draft, and they only added one player in the draft, and that was the 7th round. So Treylon Burks, remember, he was a first-round pick last year. He was the result of trading A.J. Brown to the Eagles. He's got little competition for targets. I don't think the offense will be as focused on the run game this year. We know that Burks performed well in terms of what he was able to accomplish last year. This is his chance to kind of take that next giant step forward. And because Tennessee didn't really do anything to help him, I like him. I think that he's someone who will benefit. Rhamondre Stevenson with New England. Despite rumors that the Patriots would draft another running back, they didn't. They didn't add any new backs. Instead, they bolstered their offensive line by selecting 3 mid-round picks there. Dameon Harris is now on Buffalo, so Stevenson is expected to be the workhorse back in 2023. Of course, we saw him have a strong performance even with Harris last year. So with not much changing there, I like Stevenson as someone who's going to benefit. The last one that I'll talk about here is JK Dobbins. So JK Dobbins is another year removed from having that ACL injury. He looked impressive at the end of his rookie year in 2020. He has, from all that I've heard, he's had a great offseason. He's training well. He's healthy. The Ravens receiving core has improved dramatically with the additions of Odell Beckham. You've got a healthy Rashad Bateman, and you also have Zay Flowers coming in as a rookie. They're going to pass the ball a lot. Defenses can't just kind of key in on that stopping the run. So that kind of opens things up for Dobbins. He's expected to be the top performer on the team, and he's supported by Lamar Jackson, his running ability, of course, his new contract as well. So I like Dobbins as someone who benefited as a result of what the Ravens did. So those are my top 5 players who I think will benefit as a result of the draft as well as the offseason.
Those are all great picks, Jeff. I really liked all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and do my list. There's a little bit of overlap in the first 2 with what your list is, but also some key differences. So the first one I'm going to talk about is my guy, DeAndre Swift. I mean, he goes from a situation in Detroit where he wasn't really, wanted anymore. The addition of Ja'Marr Gibbs made him pretty much irrelevant, and goes to one of the better running teams in the league. We saw what Miles Sanders did last year in this offense, and I know that the Eagles have Rashad Penny and Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, but I think that Swift is as talented or more talented than all of them. I know it's going to be a running back by committee, but I think he's in a much better situation now than he was in Detroit. Another one that you also had was Rhamondre Stevenson. I think that, just the fact that it didn't add another running back to the backfield helps him out. I think Damian Harris leaving helps him out. His only real competition for carries right now is probably Pierre Strong, who, isn't really someone to worry about. So it really seems like he has the backfield all to himself there in New England. So that's someone that definitely got helped this offseason. My third running back on this list is Dameon Pierce. He's kind of in the same situation as Rhamondre Stevenson. He didn't really add anyone that should take the bulk of carries away from him. And they did add Devin Singletary, but I'm not really worried about him taking Pierce's job. They didn't really add anyone in the draft. They got, a new QB, some offensive line help in the draft as well, so that should help the running game. We'll see how C.J. Stroud does at quarterback, but having someone that isn't Davis Mills back there should also help Pierce get some more better running lanes. So that's my number 3 on the help list. Number 4 on the help list is Geno Smith. I think it's obvious that, adding Jackson Smith and Jigba to that offense would help any quarterback. And now having a super talented trio going along with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, as well as, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. It's probably one of the more loaded offenses if we just look at the skill position players in the league right now. So, being the guy that had kind of a resurrection year last year, he did taper off towards the end of the year, but I think he comes back and has a great year with those weapons surrounding him. So I think he definitely got helped this offseason. And the last one I have is Lamar Jackson. One, because he actually got signed. They didn't have a contract dispute going into the middle of November. So having that brand new contract, having a new offensive coordinator with a different system where it's not just running the ball with their 17 running backs. They drafted Zay Flowers. They signed Odell. They have Rashad Bateman. They have Mark Andrews. So he has a bunch of weapons now that are not just, Bateman and a bunch of, bodies to throw to. And I think having those along with the new offensive system will definitely benefit him greatly in his development as a quarterback, along with the rushing ability that he already possesses. So those are my 5 top guys that were helped this offseason.
All right, that's a pretty good list. If I would have needed to add another one to my list for those who have been helped, I definitely would say Geno Smith as well. I mean, he's got an embarrassment of riches as far as offensive skill positions are concerned. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Of course, you've got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet and Noah Fant. We can't forget about him.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot happening for Smith right now. Totally a career year, 4,200 yards, 30 touchdown passes. He even had 360 rushing yards. So, it's hard to think that he is not going to at least repeat, if not perform better than last year.
Build upon, yeah.
So, exactly. I really like that. Good call on Smith as well as the others, too. So,
well, thank you.
All right. And we had some similar ones there. Stevenson as well. I mean, how can you not be excited about Rhamondre Stevenson with New England, except for the fact maybe that they have to play the entire AFC East, which is just going to be a challenge to itself. All right. So are we ready to talk about those who were hurt?
Absolutely. I'll start with the hurt ones this time.
Okay. All right.
So my first hurt one is someone I just mentioned and helped, which is Kenneth Walker. I think, going into the draft, if you took away Bijan Robinson and Ja'Marr Gibbs, I think A lot of people thought Zach Charbonnet was in that, running back 3, running back 4 class of rookie back to come out. And the fact that he got drafted to a place where they already had, a young back that showed that he could perform is something that, definitely hurts both. It hurts Charbonnet's ceiling, and I think it hurts Walker's floor as well, because we don't know now what percentage of the carries are going to go to both. We don't know how both will be used, but to have a back of Charbonnet's caliber, where they got him, they're going to use him, and that just only, eats into Walker's workload. So that's going to hurt him there. Another running back I'm going to talk about that pretty much got erased from existence is Tyler Allgeier. Once you draft Bijan Robinson at pick number 8, you're going to use Bijan Robinson. So while, Atlanta was a huge running team last year, there is absolutely zero chance, assuming Bijan stays healthy, that Tyler Allgeier is going to get any kind of work necessary to be any kind of fantasy asset this year. So I think that, it's pretty safe to say that he's currently dead on arrival coming into the season. Switching over to tight end, I'm looking at Dawson Knox. The Bills have been looking for a consistent number 2, which seems like forever. So they went and drafted Dalton Kincaid, who is probably the best receiving tight end in this draft. So that's definitely going to take a major impact on how Dawson Knox is used, as he was kind of like that red zone weapon they were looking for up in Buffalo. So that work is probably going to go over to Kincaid. So I think that Dawson Knox, similar to what happens with Allgeier, is just going to be replaced by a better, more athletic version of what he already brings to the table, which leaves a little room for him to perform. Someone else I think that got really hurt is Ryan Tannehill. First, because they drafted his replacement at pick 33 in Will Levis. So that's obviously not a good sign for him as he's up in age. And number 2, because as you mentioned in your Treylon Burks discussion, that they didn't really add any pieces to help out the offense, really. I mean, Burks is still the guy there. They didn't draft they didn't draft a wide receiver until the end of the draft. They drafted Tajay Spears, but with Derrick Henry there, how much work is he really going to get? So they really didn't do anything to really help Tannehill or the offense in general. It seems like they're preparing more for the Will Levis era. So I think Tannehill's days it's quickly coming to an end in Tennessee.
All right, there you go. Well, hey, you mentioned 2 players that I have on my list, and that's Tyler Allgeier in Atlanta. I mean, how can we not talk about him? He's basically going to become an afterthought, but sometimes we see that with rookies who were drafted on day 3, who have a good year, and then that next year they're replaced, right? So It's exactly what's happening in Atlanta with him and Bijan Robinson. And the other one that you mentioned was Kenneth Walker. Nothing against Walker and his ability, but now that Zach Charbonnet is now part of the team, part of the huddle, part of the lineup, there's going to be, I just don't see Charbonnet not having some sort of an impact here, even year 1. Is it still Walker's job, his role, his main primary rusher? Yeah, probably, but not to the extent that we would have liked, where he's going to have 25 touches or so a game. I don't think we're going to see that. And I think the reason why they got Charbonnet is so that they can kind of have a balanced attack. And that hurts for fantasy. Great for the NFL, hurts for fantasy. One player that you did not mention that I want to make sure I include is Travis Etienne. So we saw Etienne split duties with James Robinson last year before Robinson was traded to the Jets. And this was like week 8 or so, like October-ish. Robinson outcarried Etienne, and he outperformed him in that early going. It wasn't until he was traded where Etienne kind of burst onto the scene last year. Doug Peterson is known for his committee approach at running back, and I just kind of see Tank Bigsby, who was a 3rd-round draft pick this year, kind of occupy a role that's going to, at best, yield like a 50-50 split. I mean, I really see that happening with Etienne and Bigsby. So I'm very concerned there for Etienne. So another one that I think is someone who's going to falter a little bit this year is Tyler Lockett in Seattle. So Lockett is now he's going to have to contend with Jackson Smith and Jigba, of course, and DK Metcalf. You throw Noah Fant in there as well, and the offense in general is just, kind of exploding right now. Will Lockett potentially be left behind? I don't know about left behind, but I do see him declining in his numbers compared to last year. So Lockett is someone that I see who is hurt. He's not helped. He's hurt by the fact that, hey, they added Jackson Smith and Jigga, not just this year, but moving forward. And the last one that I have is Darnell Mooney in Chicago. So in 2022, Mooney was the top receiver for the Bears. He was the go-to receiver, if you want to call it that, for that offense. He didn't really pass that much, but he was the guy. And now he's not. DJ Moore's part of the team now. Of course, Chase Claypool is going to be more involved. Mooney, I think, just kind of takes a step back. And that also, we haven't even mentioned Cole Kmet here. He's a factor as well. So I see Mooney kind of playing a little bit of a lesser role, kind of along the same lines of Tyler Lockett. His numbers are just going to be on the decline. His needle is pointing more down than it is up. So I think he's someone that should be mentioned. So those were my picks: Allgeier, Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, Tyler Lockett, and Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, it's a great pick, especially, with Lockett and Mooney not being, kind of dropping down the pecking order with targets. I think all those were great picks.
Well, that pretty much does it for our show here. Stay tuned next when we're going to talk about the NFL schedule release, and we're going to give you our thoughts on, hey, what are the best games to look forward to? Who has the best start? Who has the worst start? Who are some teams that you should target for fantasy purposes for weeks 15, 16, 17? All of that once we get the schedule release happening on Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Of course, with some leaks, I'm sure we'll see some before then, but we should have that for you here real soon. Make sure you check that out. Check out our other videos. And again, for Dan Turner, I am Jeff Hasley. Thanks for joining us on Draft Brothers, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.